A new round of history with Disney Snow White, to be sure. In fact, no remake of The House of the Mouse has ever encountered such problems and such fierce disputes as this. A seemingly harmless adaptation, only recently we talked about how Disney, clearly afraid of competition from an alternative film adaptation from the Daily Wire, and also afraid of the anger of fans, decided to spend millions of dollars more and remake its own Snow White almost from scratch, postponing its release date as early as 2025. Then it turned out that the performer of the role of Snow White, Rachel Zegler, apparently I don't intend to change anything at all. So instead of somehow drawing conclusions and at least slightly reducing my ardor, the actress made more and more statements that made even the Disney boss's hair stand on end. Well, in the end, all this apparently led to a logical outcome. Which one? Yes, it's very simple. Now the Mouse House is looking for one young actress for the role of Snow White in their remake of the 25th year. You will find out all the details right now. And first, well, just very briefly, we need to remind you what has been happening around Snow White for the last couple of months, so that everyone understands the context. So after the gigantic negativity caused by the fact that the Mouse House in its remake completely abandoned the concept of dwarves, deciding to replace them with some kind of forest spirits or other magical creatures, as well as after numerous more defiant statements by Rachel Zegler after all this. A couple of months ago it turned out that the Daily Wire portal was removing its canonical version, as opposed to the Disney one. Well, a little later it turned out that Disney suddenly announced that their film adaptation would be released not in the spring of the 24th, but as early as the spring of the next 2025. It is clear that the Mouse House does not do all this from a good life, but because it's just in the current state of the film Snow White would be the greatest possible failure for the Mouse House. So they decided to pour in another couple of tens of millions of dollars just to somehow fix the situation, and then the most interesting thing begins. Before that, I really remind everyone to subscribe to our channel so that they don't miss anything interesting in the future. So, as it has now become known from multiple reports in the English language press, Disney still wants to somehow save the situation with their future remakes. After all, everything is now they understand that simply postponing its premiere and adding some computer gnomes is unlikely to fix the situation. Meanwhile, Disney has already managed to pour a lot of money into the film, more on that in detail a little later. What have we learned now? And we learned the following. Disney is going to reduce screen time Snow White performed by Rachel Zegler, replacing her with a new story about the childhood of the main character. According to the latest information, in the hope of correcting at least some of the damage caused by the public rhetoric of the film's star Rachel Zegler on the source material and the original source, Disney currently. She is trying to reduce the screen time of her Snow White by adding a new plot dedicated to the childhood of the main princess. According to information first reported by alleged insider sources, in light of the fading of the Zegler star among viewers due to her aforementioned rhetoric criticizing all aspects of the original cartoon and soon, the Mouse House is currently working on, so to speak, softening the public's perception of the new incarnation of their legendary princess. However, instead of doing this by shooting the film, get Zegler to portray a more traditional version of the main character, the company decided to go the other way. After all, the first, reshooting with a new actress is considered impossible because of the cost of such an undertaking, and the second, to reason with or make Snow White, it seems too incredible. Instead, Disney will try to save the image Snow White with the help of a new plot focused on her young personality and the embodiment of a completely separate young actress. That's the plan they came up with for themselves. To this end, as reported by MovieWeb, for example, Disney is looking for a young actress to play Snow White as a child. The idea is to shorten the time of playing Zegler. Show Snow White as a cute little kid and soften the character's character with flashbacks or the main part of the origin story at the beginning of the movie. Of course, the editing of these scenes has not yet begun because we believe that they have not been filmed yet, the article says. Of course, this information has not yet been officially confirmed and is based at this time on the level of rumors. But interestingly, just a few days before MovieWeb published its story, the Disney news outlet Dis Insider published a report claiming that 10-year-old actress Emily Fau had just been selected for the film Snow White in order to portray a princess in childhood. So if this rumor is confirmed, it will be considered the last change made to the animated original on the way to its remake. Nevertheless, it seems to me that such a decision makes perfect sense. After all, we all understand that it is prohibitively expensive to completely reshoot a film with a new actress, but take and add their, well, Say 15 or 20 minutes of the children's story of Snow White with some cute little girl who will cause delight and tenderness in the average viewer is quite a way out. Well, at least in the current situation, because it is already absolutely obvious that Disney is just patching up leaks on the ship and plugging holes as best it can on the go, not wanting to put up with the fact that their next super expensive venture is about to go down the drain. By the way, here we come back to the topic of the money that the company has already spent on the remake of Snow White. I'm sure this information will surprise or even shock many, so for understanding financial documents that surfaced a certain time ago in the UK, we have slightly opened the curtain of mystery around what has already been worth Snow White as a mouse house. From them, we learned that by the time of July 31, 2022, in the almost 3-year period preceding the start of filming and directly during filming, a gigantic $209 million had been spent on the creation of the film. In the documents, part of these significant costs is explained by delays in the production of the film caused by the pandemic, which is not unusual especially compared to other high-budget releases. Nevertheless, 20% of the given the amounts were refunded as part of the UK government's program, which provides studios with monetary compensation for up to a quarter of their expenses in this country. That is, net expenses amounted to about $167 million, but it's even more interesting here, because we are talking about expenses as of the summer of the 22nd year, that is, a year and a half ago. Disney already spent almost $170 million, then passed another a year of filming for which, according to analysts, at least another $50 million was spent. Thus, the net expenses of the summer of the 23rd years amounted to at least $220 million, and this is without post-production, without reshoots and without advertising. And as we said earlier, the reshoots of the future Snow White are waiting for gigantic, as well as a huge number of visual effects. At least because of the presence of 7 rendered dwarfs. That all this will probably cost not tens, but even hundreds of millions of dollars, so it turns out that by the time the film is completed, Snow White will come to a cost of $350 million, without marketing, which will at least pull another 50. And these are not idle reflections but figures which analysts of this industry have deduced based on the average indicators of such projects and which are cited in their article by the Collider publication. Total Snow White 2025 is likely to become one of the company's most expensive films. Disney, with a budget for production and advertising from $350 to $400 million, which can be beaten off by the rental amount of roughly $700 to $800 million. Soth Company is trying its best to somehow avoid another financial disaster. As for Rachel Zegler herself, for example, some work has been done with her. After all, in her recent interview, the actress no longer talked about how she was afraid and hated the original Snow White. No. Now on the contrary, it turned out that she almost adored this story from childhood, and in general, according to Rachel, she's excited about what Disney has been doing for the last 100 years. Well, as if taking into account the fact that Disney exists in principle for 100 years, it turns out that she is delighted with everything that this company does. In short, apparently the studio bosses have subdued their moderately obstinate star a little, but unfortunately it seems too late, and as fourth rhetoric of the actress is about the film and her heroine, in my opinion, Zegler can no longer be stopped, so in her fresh interview. After all the postponements of the novelty and other things, the actress again began to annoy with stories about the leadership of her character. Let me remind you that Zegler had previously irritated fans with statements like that for her new Snow White's feelings are not important. Love is not important, and so on. The main thing for her is to find a leader in herself, to become the most just. Well, in short, everything is in the spirit of strong women, in the bad cinematic sense of the word. Write your thoughts on this matter in the comments, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and of course put your thumbs up. Thanks to everyone who was with us and to everyone so far.